Say this over your finances every morning for 30 days. You already talk to your money every single day. The question nobody ever asked you is whether your words are building it up or quietly tearing it down while you sleep. The Bible says it plainly in Mark chapter 11, "Whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith." And E.W. Kenyon would stop you right there and say, do you see it? The mountain does not move because you feel differently about it. The mountain moves because you said something to it and believed the saying. Most of us have spent years describing our bank account out loud and calling it just being honest, when the truth is, your mouth was never built for reporting what already happened. It was built for declaring what is coming. And until you understand that difference, every morning you spend complaining about money is a morning you spend re-signing the same contract with lack. Say it with me. I speak life over every dollar I have. I call my finances into order today. I trust my words more than I trust my fears. My money hears me now. Again, I speak life over every dollar I have. I call my finances into order today. I trust my words more than I trust my fears. My money hears me now. If something in you just went quiet when you heard that, type the 2 words "I'm ready" in the comments right now. Let it be your seal before we go any further. I would love for tomorrow's teaching to find you too. So stay close and subscribe before we continue. The first law is that your mouth is a command over your money, not a report on it. Most people wake up, check their balance, feel the sting of it, and then narrate that sting out loud all day long. I am broke. I will never catch up. Money just runs through my hands, and they think they are simply being accurate. But Kenyon taught that words are not just describing reality. Words are producing it. Your account balance is a photograph of yesterday's words, not a sentence about tomorrow. So if you keep photographing the past out loud every morning, you keep manufacturing the same tomorrow. It is not honesty to speak your lack. It is agreement with it, and there is a difference between admitting a fact and swearing allegiance to it. Picture 2 people receiving the exact same paycheck on the exact same Friday. One of them opens the banking app first thing, sees the number, sighs, and mutters, "This is never enough," before their feet even hit the floor. The other one has not looked at the number yet. They speak first. They say something plain like, "My provision is steady, and my hands are capable," and only then do they check the account. Same paycheck, same bills waiting, same month ahead, but one of them just spent their first waking breath signing a contract with scarcity, while the other spent it signing a contract with order. Nobody watching from outside would call either one dishonest. Both are simply choosing which sentence gets to go first, and Kenyon would say, that sentence which goes first is the one your whole day quietly organizes itself around. Think about how a single grumbled remark over coffee about money being tight tends to color the next 12 hours. You notice every expense differently. You flinch at every receipt. You feel poorer than the actual number even requires. That is not the bank account doing that to you. That is the sentence you agreed with at 7 in the morning, still running in the background all day. So try this small experiment this week. Before your eyes ever land on a number, on any screen, on any statement, on any receipt, let your mouth move first. One sentence, plain and steady. Something like, "My needs are met and my hands are capable." Let the sentence lead and let the checking follow, rather than the other way around, because whoever speaks first in your day sets the tone the rest of the day simply follows. And once you notice that pattern, you cannot unnotice it. I will not let my mouth agree with my lack any longer. The second law is that there are 2 kinds of knowledge fighting for your finances every single morning. Kenyon called them sense knowledge and revelation knowledge. Sense knowledge is what your eyes see in the account, what your hands feel in the empty wallet, what your ears hear when the bill collector calls, and it is real, it is not imaginary, but it is not final. Revelation knowledge is what the Word says is true about provision. And Kenyon taught that sense knowledge will always shout louder at first because it has evidence right in front of you, while revelation knowledge asks you to believe something you cannot yet touch. Think of a farmer standing over bare dirt in early spring. His senses tell him nothing is there, no wheat, no green, nothing to harvest. But he already planted seed under that dirt last week, so he does not confess bare ground. He confesses a coming harvest, because he knows what is true is not always what is visible yet. Now picture something closer to home. A woman stands in a grocery line, watching the total climb higher than she expected. Her senses report every rising number with perfect accuracy. Her stomach tightens. Her hand almost reaches for her phone to check a balance she already fears is too low. This is sense knowledge doing exactly what it was built to do, reporting what is right in front of her. But if she lets that moment become her final verdict on her whole financial life, she has just let a 5-minute snapshot write a permanent story. Kenyon would say, the checkout line is not lying to her. It is simply incomplete. It can only ever tell her what is happening right now. It cannot tell her what the Word has already settled about her provision. This is why revelation knowledge cannot be gathered the same way sense knowledge is. You cannot see it with your eyes first. You have to speak it before you feel it confirmed. That order feels backwards to almost everyone the first time they try it. We are trained our whole lives to believe first and speak second. See the paycheck, then feel secure. See the savings grow, then feel at peace. But Kenyon taught that the Word works in the opposite direction. You speak the settled truth first, and the feeling of security follows the speaking. It does not lead it. It is not lying to speak revelation over sense knowledge. It is refusing to let a temporary picture write a permanent verdict. A low number today is a photograph, not a prophecy, and a photograph only shows you where you were standing when it was taken, not where the story ends. When your mind tells you, look at the numbers, that is sense knowledge doing its job. It is not the enemy. It is simply not the judge. Your mouth answers to a higher report than the one flashing on a screen. So this week, when a bill, a balance, or a worried glance at your bank app tries to hand you a verdict, let it hand you information instead. Notice it, and then answer it out loud with what the Word already says is true. The numbers are not the final word. The promise is, I choose what is true over what only looks true. The third law is that you are not begging for provision. You are standing on a legal right that was already settled for you. Kenyon taught what he called identification, meaning that everything Christ walked through on your behalf, including carrying the curse of poverty spoken of in Scripture, was not a poetic idea. It was a legal transaction, and once a transaction is finished, the one it was made for does not have to re-earn it. They simply have to receive it. Think about an inheritance a father leaves for his child. The child does not work a job to earn that inheritance. The child does not plead with the lawyer for mercy. The child simply has to know the document exists and walk into the office and claim what already carries their name. So many people pray for money like they are pleading with a stranger for a favor, hoping the stranger happens to feel generous that day. When Kenyon would say you are actually a covenant child standing in front of paperwork already signed and sealed, it is not pride to say I have a right to provision. It is simply reading the document correctly instead of reading it like a beggar reads a locked door. Picture a man named Daniel who grew up watching his own father go quiet every time money came up. So Daniel learned early that asking for anything financial meant lowering your head and hoping by the time he is grown he still prays this way without realizing it. Please, if it is possible, if there is any way, and every request comes out sounding like he expects to be told no before he even finishes the sentence. One morning he reads Kenyon's teaching on identification and something shifts quietly in him. He realizes he has been walking up to a door he owns and knocking on it like a stranger. So the next morning, instead of, "Please give me enough for this bill," he says something entirely different. He says, "Thank you, that provision was already provided." And he notices immediately how different those two sentences feel in his own mouth. One sentence is a request sent upward into uncertainty. The other is a receipt being signed for something already delivered. This is worth sitting with for a moment, because begging and receiving use completely different postures, even though both can look like prayer from the outside. Begging bends low and hopes to be noticed. Receiving stands upright and simply reaches out a hand. Kenyon taught that most believers pray about money from a beggar's posture their whole lives without ever once checking whether Scripture actually put them in that position. And when you check it carefully, you find a covenant instead of a lottery. You find a legal standing instead of a wish. So this morning, before you ask for anything, try simply thanking. Let your words match the position you actually stand in rather than the position fear keeps insisting you are in. I stand on what was already finished for me. Before we go further, some of you already feel the pull to make this 30-day practice part of your actual life, and not just something you hear once. That is exactly why the daily practice exists. It takes everything in these laws and turns it into a short daily rhythm you can actually keep. Now let us continue. The fourth law is that your heart has to own the words before your mouth can command, with any real authority, and this is where most people quietly fail without ever realizing it. They say the right sentence over their finances, but their heart is still sitting in unbelief. And Kenyon taught very plainly that confession without a heart behind it is just noise. It is like a key turned in a lock that was never actually connected to the door. So let's slow down here, because this law has layers, and every layer matters more than the last. First, consider what it means that words are seeds, and the heart is the soil. A farmer can throw seed onto packed concrete all day long, and nothing will grow, not because the seed is defective, but because the ground was never prepared to receive it. Your heart is the ground, if it is packed hard with old disappointment about money, with memories of every time provision failed to show up, then even a beautiful confession spoken with your mouth lands on concrete and just sits there. This is why Kenyon puts such heavy emphasis on meditation, not meditation as some far-off mystical practice, but simply staying with the word about provision long enough and often enough that it stops feeling like a foreign sentence and starts feeling like your own thought. When it becomes your own thought, it has finally reached the soil. Picture two people reading the exact same verse about provision. One reads it once and moves on with their day. The other reads it slowly, turns it over, asks what it actually means for their specific bills this month. Only one of those two people is preparing soil, the other is just glancing at a seed packet. Second, consider the ordinary shape of a single day and how this plays out without you noticing. You wake up and speak your morning confession over your finances. That takes maybe 45 seconds. Then you scroll through messages for 20 minutes and see 3 different reminders about what you owe. Then you drive to work for 30 minutes, replaying a worry about a bill in your mind on repeat. Then you sit at a desk for 8 hours around coworkers casually complaining about how tight money is for everyone. Then you come home and open a banking app out of habit and let the numbers sting you again before dinner. Do you see what happened? You spoke revelation for 45 seconds, and you marinated in sense knowledge for nearly 16 hours. Kenyon would say, "It is not that your confession failed, It is that it was outnumbered before it ever had a chance to take root. The heart does not just need one strong sentence in the morning. It needs to be the most repeated voice across the whole day. Not the loudest just once, the most repeated over time. Think of it like two radio stations playing in the same room. One plays for less than a minute. The other plays for 16 hours straight. Whichever station plays longest is the one your heart starts humming along to without even meaning to. Third, consider what actually changes a heart. It is not intensity. It is not shouting your confession with more emotion. Kenyon taught that repetition done calmly and steadily does more than one dramatic outburst of faith ever will. Think of water on stone. One splash does nothing, but the same drip returning to the same spot day after day eventually reshapes the stone completely. Your heart is that stone, and 30 mornings of the same steady confession is that patient water. This is why the practice is not about finding the most powerful sentence you can say once. It is about finding a true sentence you can say daily, without wavering, until your heart simply cannot help but agree with it anymore. A heart does not change because you overwhelmed it one time. A heart changes because you outlasted its objections quietly, day after day, long after the excitement of day one has faded. Fourth, consider that your heart cannot be talked into believing something your daily habits keep contradicting. If you speak provision every morning, but spend your evenings watching your own hands tremble over spreadsheets in despair, the heart notices the mismatch, and the heart always believes the loudest pattern, not the prettiest sentence. This is why Kenyon connected confession so closely to conduct, not because your actions earn provision, but because your actions either agree with your words or argue against them. Imagine telling someone you trust them completely while checking their every move behind their back. Your words say one thing, your behavior says another, and eventually the behavior wins the argument. Your heart treats your own finances the exact same way, so ask yourself honestly this week whether your evening habits are agreeing with your morning words or quietly undoing them, one small, anxious action at a time. So here is the exercise. Pause for a moment right now and pick one real financial fear you have been carrying quietly. Not a vague one, a specific one. Maybe it is a due date, maybe it is a number that keeps you up. Now speak one true sentence from the word directly at that specific fear, not a generic feel-good line. Something aimed right at the actual worry. That is what it means to let your heart finally own the words. It is not enough to speak faith in general, you have to speak it directly over the exact spot where doubt has been living. My heart agrees with what my mouth is declaring. I want to pause and thank a few of you before we go further, because your dedication to actually saying this every morning already told me something about you. Tomorrow's teaching needs to reach you too. So if you have not yet, subscribe now so it finds you. The fifth law is short, but it will save you more than any other law here. Fear is a counter-confession, and it cancels your morning words faster than almost anything else. Imagine you speak your provision confession at 7 in the morning, calm and full of quiet confidence. And then, at 2 in the afternoon, a text comes in about an unexpected expense, and you blurt out under your breath, "There goes everything." That sentence is not neutral. It is not just an emotional release. Kenyon taught that fear spoken out loud is simply a confession, running in the opposite direction, and it does not politely wait its turn behind your morning words. It competes with them in real time. Think about a man named Daniel who speaks his confession every morning before his feet even touch the cold floor. Calm, steady, sure of it. And then by 9, that same morning, his phone buzzes with a message from his landlord about a late fee he forgot was coming, and without even thinking, he mutters under his breath, "Of course this happens to me." He does not notice it. It feels like nothing, just a reflex. just a normal human sigh. But Kenyon would say that sigh was a legal document just as real as the one he signed at 7, and it was filed directly against the one he spoke first. By lunch, Daniel has said some version of that sentence 3 more times, once about traffic, once about a coworker's careless comment, once about the weather ruining his plans, and by the time he gets home his morning confession has been quietly outvoted 5-1, and he never even realized there was a vote happening. It is not weakness to feel a jolt of fear when a bill arrives. Everyone feels that jolt. The body flinches, the stomach drops. That reaction is simply human, and it passes in seconds. But it is costly to let that passing jolt turn into a lingering sentence spoken out into the room, because the feeling leaves quickly while the sentence stays behind in your heart, working long after you have forgotten you ever said it. This is why Kenyon placed so much weight on catching fear the moment it opens its mouth, not years from now, not after the pattern has calcified, but today, this very afternoon, the next time your chest tightens over money. So build one small habit starting now. Whenever fear rises about money, do not silence it by pretending it is not there, and do not let it wander off unanswered either. Answer it instead, out loud if you can, with the very same words you spoke that morning. Let your fear meet your confession face to face instead of meeting your silence. Because silence lets fear finish its sentence unopposed, while an answer stops it mid-breath. I will not let a sudden fear undo a settled word. The 6th law is that giving is what opens the actual channel your words are commanding through. This is a piece Kenyon returned to often, because confession without generosity becomes a closed loop, all talk and no motion. He taught giving not as a transaction to manipulate God into paying you back, but as a covenant seed, the same principle a farmer trusts without needing to fully understand the biology of it. Seed goes into the ground, and it does not disappear. It multiplies according to a law older than any bank system. Think about a narrow pipe that has not been used in years. It gets clogged with sediment over time. Confession is turning the water on. Giving is what keeps the pipe clear enough for that water to actually reach somewhere. If you speak provision every morning, but hold your hand shut all day, refusing to give even in small, measured ways, you are essentially declaring a river while pinching the very channel that river needs to move through. Let us slow down and look at why this actually works the way Kenyon described it. First, consider that fear and generosity cannot occupy the same hand at the same moment. A closed fist is not neutral. It is a quiet confession of its own. It says, there is not enough here to spare any of it. And that silent confession runs all day underneath whatever your mouth spoke at breakfast. So a hand that stays clenched around every dollar is secretly arguing with the very words you already declared. Giving, even in small measured amounts, is your hand finally agreeing out loud with your mouth. It is the body backing up what the voice already said. Second, consider an ordinary Thursday to see how this plays out for someone real. Picture a man named Daniel who speaks his confession every single morning and genuinely means every word of it. But every time a coworker asks to borrow lunch money or a cashier asks for a small donation at the register, he tenses up and says, "Not today," not because he is cruel, but because his hand has never been taught to move in the same direction his mouth keeps speaking. Weeks pass, and Daniel notices his confession starting to feel hollow, like an engine revving hard in neutral. All sound, no motion. Kenyon would say the confession was never broken. The transmission simply never engaged. The moment Daniel starts giving small and steady a few dollars here, a coffee bought for someone there, he does not see any difference in his balance that same week. But he feels an immediate difference in his own believing. His confession stops sounding like a hopeful guess, and starts sounding like a statement his whole life is finally backing up. Third, consider that the size of the seed was never the measure Kenyon cared about. The measure was always consistency. A small seed planted every week outperforms one large seed planted once and then quietly regretted. Because consistency is what tells your own heart that giving is simply how you live now, not an emergency performance you pulled off one time just to prove a point to yourself. This does not mean give recklessly, and it does not mean give what you do not have. It means give on purpose, on a rhythm, so that your hand and your mouth are finally telling the same story every single day instead of two different ones. Fourth, consider what this does to the words you speak tomorrow morning. Once your hand has moved this week, your mouth is no longer speaking alone into an empty room. It is speaking with a witness standing right beside it. Your own recent generosity becomes evidence your heart can quietly point to when doubt shows up, saying, "Remember what your hand already did." This is why Kenyon placed giving so close to confession, not as two separate disciplines, but as one motion happening in two places at once, the mouth declaring increase, and the hand proving it already believes that declaration is true. My hand stays open because my mouth is already speaking increase. The seventh law is the deepest one, and it is the reason the number 30 was chosen for this practice in the first place. 30 days is not a magic number. It is simply how long it typically takes a spoken confession to stop being an act you perform and start being the actual shape of your thinking. And Kenyon taught this. Transformation happens in identifiable stages, not randomly, not all at once, but in a specific unfolding order. So let's walk through it piece by piece, and let's walk through it with a real picture in mind. Imagine a woman named Elena who works 2 jobs and has never once in her adult life gone a full month without quietly dreading the mail. She starts this practice on a Monday morning, standing in her kitchen with lukewarm coffee, feeling almost silly, saying words out loud to an empty room about money she does not yet have. First, consider what happens in the earliest days, days 1 through 5 or so. This stage feels almost effortless because you are riding on the fresh motivation of starting something new. Elena speaks her confession with real energy. Those first mornings, she feels lighter. She even notices a small, unexpected refund land in her account on day 3 and thinks the whole thing is already working. This early encouragement is real, but Kenyon would caution you here. Do not mistake early enthusiasm for finished transformation. This stage is simply the seed going into the ground. Nothing structural has actually changed yet in the natural. The harvest has not started. Elena has simply stopped speaking against herself for 5 mornings in a row. That alone is not nothing. But it is not yet the thing this practice was built to produce. It is only the ground being broken open for the first time in years. Second, consider the stage most people quietly quit in, somewhere around day 7 through day 15. This is where the initial excitement fades, and sense knowledge starts making its case again, with real evidence. For Elena, this shows up on day 9 when her car needs an unexpected repair, and the bill is larger than she has sitting anywhere. This is the exact stage where most people conclude the confession is not working and abandon it right before anything was ever meant to be visible. Think of that same farmer standing over his field 2 weeks after planting. Nothing green has broken the surface yet. If he judged the harvest by what his eyes could see on day 12, he would plow the whole field under in discouragement and never know that underneath the dirt, roots were already forming exactly on schedule. Elena almost does exactly that on day 11. She sits in her car in a parking lot and almost decides this was foolish, but she speaks the words anyway that morning. Flat, unfelt, almost mechanical. And Kenyon taught that this middle stretch is where faith is actually built. not where it is proven. It is built in the exact days when there is nothing to show for it yet. The discipline of continuing your confession daily matters more here than at any other point, not because your words suddenly get louder or more desperate, but because you keep speaking calmly on a day when speaking calmly is the hardest thing in the world to do. It is not that the words stopped working on day 11. It is that day 11 was never asked to show you a harvest. It was only asked to keep the field planted, and this is the day most people never even count, because it does not feel like progress. It feels like nothing. And Kenyon would tell you nothing is exactly what root growth always looks like from above the soil. Third, consider what begins to shift somewhere past day 15 into day 25. This is where something subtle starts happening inside a person that has nothing to do with the bank account yet. By day 18, Elena notices she is not as rattled by a bill as she used to be. The fear still knocks, but it takes a second longer to actually get in the door. She notices herself pausing before panic, instead of falling straight into it the way she always had. That hesitation is the sound of her heart finally agreeing with what her mouth has been saying for weeks. Kenyon called this the shift from sense knowledge dominance to revelation knowledge dominance. It does not mean the senses stop reporting things. The number on the screen still says what it says. It means the senses stop being the final judge in the room. The numbers can still say one thing, while your peace says another. And for the first time, that gap does not terrify you the way it used to. It simply exists, quietly, without controlling you. This is also the stage where Elena catches herself doing something she never used to do. She overhears a coworker complaining loudly about money in the break room, and instead of joining in automatically the way she always had, she just listens. She does not correct them. She does not preach at them. She simply notices that their words no longer feel like her own words anymore. That quiet distance between her old habit and her new one is not something she manufactured on purpose. It simply grew there, while she was busy speaking every morning. Fourth, consider what typically happens by day 30 itself. By this point, the confession has usually stopped feeling like a scripted exercise and started feeling like simply how a person talks. On the morning of day 30, Elena catches herself saying part of her confession under her breath while making breakfast, not because she remembered she was supposed to, but because it had simply become the sentence her mind reaches for first. Now, this is the actual goal of the entire 30 days, not 30 days of gritted teeth performance, but 30 days that quietly retrain what your default sentence about money even is. Once that default shifts, you do not need a card or a script anymore, because the words come from the same place your old fearful words used to come from, except now it is faith sitting in that seat instead of fear. Fifth, consider what this stage feels like from the inside on an ordinary evening rather than a dramatic one. Elena is folding laundry on day 28, half listening to the television when a commercial about debt relief plays in the background. The old Elena would have felt her stomach drop instantly at just the sound of that phrase. This Elena barely looks up, not because she has become numb or careless about money, but because the sentence, sitting underneath her attention now, is calmer than the one that used to live there. Kenyon would say this is the entire aim of the 30 days laid bare in one small, unremarkable moment. Not a dramatic breakthrough with fireworks attached to it. Just an ordinary evening where the old panic simply did not show up to the appointment it used to keep, every single time without fail. And here is the part almost nobody tells you. Once the 30 days end, you may still face a tight month, an unexpected bill, a slow season that has not gone away, and this teaching never promised it would. Elena's car did not fix itself for free, and her hours at work did not suddenly double. What has changed is not your circumstances arriving on schedule. What has changed is which voice inside you speaks first. When those circumstances show up, it is not that the storm disappears, it is that you are no longer the same person standing in it. The confession did not remove her problems. It simply removed her old habit of surrendering to them the moment they appeared. My confession is no longer a performance. It is simply who I have become. The eighth law is that praise is what seals shut what your confession opened. Kenyon taught that speaking the word is only half the practice. The other half is thanking God for it before you have any visible proof it worked. Most people wait to praise until after the money shows up, and that feels logical, but it is actually backwards from how faith operates, because waiting to be thankful until you see the result puts your gratitude on the same level as sense knowledge, always dependent on evidence first. Praise offered before the harvest is a declaration that you already trust the seed more than you trust your own eyesight. First, consider what praise actually communicates underneath the words themselves. When you say thank you, before anything has changed, you are telling your own heart that the matter is already settled. You are not thanking a maybe, you are thanking a fact you cannot yet see with your natural eyes. Think of it like signing for a package before the delivery truck has even left the warehouse. The driver has not knocked yet, the box is not sitting on your porch yet, but the signature already exists because the transaction already exists somewhere ahead of you. Praise is simply you signing for provision that is already on its way. Second, consider an ordinary Tuesday morning where this quietly plays out. Picture someone who speaks their confession slowly over their coffee, calm and steady, and then almost immediately checks their phone and sees a bill reminder sitting right there in the notifications waiting for them. The old habit would be to sigh, to feel that familiar sting land in the chest, to let the whole day start on the back foot before it even properly begins. But this time, they pause for 3 seconds and simply say, "Thank you that this is already being taken care of." Nothing about the bill vanished in that moment. The number did not magically change on the screen, but something inside their chest settled instead of tightened. They go to work lighter. Not because the facts changed, but because their gratitude was never waiting on the facts to change first. That same 3-second habit, repeated every single morning without fail, is exactly what Kenyon meant when he said praise seals the confession shut behind it. Third, consider what happens in a heart without this seal in place. Imagine speaking a beautiful confession every single morning, but then spending the rest of the day anxiously checking to see if it has worked yet, glancing at the balance twice an hour. That anxious checking is itself a quiet form of unbelief, wearing the disguise of diligence. It is asking, has it happened yet? Has it happened yet? Over and over without rest. And Kenyon taught that this constant checking actually reopens the very door your morning confession just closed. Praise is what keeps that door shut through the whole day, because a heart cannot genuinely thank someone for a thing while simultaneously demanding proof that the thing is real. Those two postures cannot occupy the same heart at the same moment. So praise becomes a kind of quiet guard standing at the door of your own confession, making sure fear does not slip back in through the same crack it left through only hours earlier. Fourth, consider the ordinary word thanks itself. How small it sounds. 2 syllables, spoken in less than a second, and yet Kenyon treated it as one of the heaviest tools available to a believer. Not because the word carries some magic in its sound, but because of what it quietly reveals about the heart speaking it. A person who can say thank you before any proof has arrived is a person whose heart has actually caught up to their own mouth, which loops all the way back to the heart owning the words. And praise is often the clearest evidence available that the heart finally has. So somewhere inside your daily practice, right after you speak your confession, add one short sentence of thanks. Not thanks for what you can already see sitting in front of you, thanks for what you have already spoken, and now trust is already moving on your behalf. This single small habit is often what separates the people who quietly give up around day 20 from the people who make it all the way through to the end. Because, Grat, the ninth law brings everything back to where we started. You are not gambling with your words over your finances. You are governing with them. Gambling implies chance, implies luck, implies crossing your fingers and hoping something random lands in your favor. But everything Kenyon taught about confession points somewhere completely different. It points to government, to the idea that you were given real authority over the words that leave your own mouth. And authority is not loud. Authority is not anxious. Authority does not need to shout to be effective. A person governing well over their own household does not scream every instruction. They simply speak clearly and consistently, and the household learns to move accordingly. Your finances are learning to move according to your words too, whether you have noticed that pattern before or not. Think about a woman who runs a small shop and opens every morning the same way. She does not walk in wondering if today will randomly go well. She unlocks the door, turns on the lights, counts the register the same steady way every single time. Her shop does not run on luck. It runs on the quiet order she sets before a single customer ever walks in. Your morning confession is that same unlocking, that same steady counting. It sets an order over your day before a single dollar moves. And here is the part easy to miss. On the days that shop owner skips her routine, the shop does not collapse instantly, but small disorder creeps in unnoticed until she wonders weeks later why everything feels chaotic again. Your finances work the same quiet way. This is also why gambling language sneaks into so many prayers about money without anyone noticing it. Please let this somehow work out. I hope this bill just disappears. We cross our fingers, dressed up as faith. But Kenyon would say hope without a spoken government behind it is still just waiting on luck. Wearing religious clothing, real authority sounds different. It sounds like I have already spoken over this. It sounds calm because it is not asking for a favor. It is exercising a right. So this is not about becoming a different person overnight. It is about finally noticing the authority you were quietly handed all along and choosing to use it on purpose instead of by accident. Every morning you speak is either you governing your finances or your finances quietly governing you. There is no neutral morning. I govern my words, and my words govern my finances. Here is the whole picture. Your mouth was never built for reporting your lack. It was built for commanding your provision. Sense knowledge will always shout the loudest evidence, while revelation knowledge asks you to believe something deeper and truer underneath it. You are not begging for money. You are standing on a covenant right already settled on your behalf. Your heart has to own the words before your mouth can carry real weight. Fear is simply a counter-confession that has to be met and answered rather than silently obeyed. Giving keeps the channel open that your words are already moving through. 30 days is not superstition. It is simply how long it takes a confession to become your actual nature instead of a performance. Praise seals shut what confession first opened, and in the end, this was never gambling with your words. It was governing with them. All 9 of these were never separate lessons. They were 9 turns of the exact same key. The recognition that your morning words are not commentary on your money. They are the quiet architecture your money is being built on every single day, whether you notice it or not. If everything in you is ready to actually live this daily, instead of just hearing it once, the daily practice was built exactly for that. It takes these 9 laws and turns them into one short guided confession. You speak each morning for 30 straight days. Simple enough to do with your coffee still in hand. It is available today for a small one-time price, and it comes with a full refund. If it does not serve you, you will find the link in the description below whenever you are ready. Say it with me one final time. I speak life over every dollar I have. I call my finances into order today. I trust my words more than I trust my fears. My money hears me now. And that is the whole quiet secret behind saying this over your finances every morning for 30 days. Not magic, not luck, just your own mouth finally governing what it was always meant to govern.